The lab was silent. Dad Cat dropped a few drops of liquid on the capybara's back inside the glass cage. His eyes never left the stopwatch. Whoa, look, it puffed like a palm. The mouse's fur ballooned. Alice leaned closer, eyes sparkling with excitement. Dangerous. No one touches this. He locked the vial inside a steel cabinet, typed the code, and double-checked the lock. Night fell. The hallway stretched long and empty, hum of the AC filling the space. Alice's shadow flickered against the wall. Alice whispered, "Let's try the code." Wrong again. With gloves on, she poked the keypad. Growing impatient, Alice pulled out a tiny hammer, gave it a tap. The alarm went off loud. Alice panicked. Uh-oh, run! Alice slipped, knocking over bottles that crashed to the floor. But luckily, she held on tight to the important vial and dashed out. Panicked, the little kitten finally slipped away. Her heart raced, but she breathed a sigh of relief. Back home, her mischief sparked again. Alice grinned. "Let's make the puppy fluffy as a cloud." One drop fell. Woof! The puppy puffed into a round ball of fur, rolling across the carpet. Alice cried, "Ah, my arms are fluffy too!" Her fur spread to her arms, knocking over a vase with a loud crash.
Alice, what have you done?
Mom Cat, furious, lifted the kitten into the air, her sharp voice echoing in anger. Angry, Mom Cat hurled the vial into the yard and walked away, not caring about it anymore. Mom Cat stepped in. "I'll handle this." Dad Cat scolded firmly. Dad said seriously, "Always follow safety rules." Alice lowered her head. "I understand." That night, the whole family gathered around the TV, laughing and chatting as they watched together.
Breaking news.
The TV flickered, showing a blazing giant meteor racing toward Earth, and the whole family stood frozen. Mom Cat panicked, her mind flashing with frightening images as her eyes widened in fear. The meteor crashed hard, tearing through everything in its path and leaving only devastation behind. In her mind appeared a ruined city, shattered and desolate, with dust and silence covering everything. Grace rushed frantically into the yard, her breath quick and heavy, as if desperate to find a way to save everyone. Grace knelt in the garden, pushing aside clusters of leaves, her shaky hands digging through the soil until they touched the familiar vial. Ethan held Alice tightly in his arms, the two of them staring helplessly at the massive meteor blazing down from the fiery sky. Mom Cat looked up, her eyes firm with resolve, face set with determination, as if ready to face anything. Grace gripped the vial tightly, then without hesitation opened it and poured everything onto her head, a green glow bursting out instantly. Her hair swelled and spread like an ocean of clouds, wrapping around the rooftop in a glowing, otherworldly embrace. Strands shot upward, stretching longer and longer until they merged into a massive pillar, rising straight into the sky. The strands twisted faster, braiding into a gigantic arm that reached skyward. Alice cheered excitedly, "Tighter, Mom!" More and more hair-formed hands surged upward, crowding together in thick layers, stacking higher and higher into the sky. Hair-formed hands stretched upward, sweeping across the sky and crushing falling meteor shards into bursts of glowing sparks. Grace faltered, breath ragged and body weakened by the first strike, then suddenly lifted her gaze, eyes flashing with renewed resolve. From the blazing sky, a massive meteor roared downward, leaving a fiery red streak tearing across the heavens. Summoning every ounce of strength, the strands fused and rose, forming an immense mass of hair that spread wide and engulfed everything around. The impact exploded outward, shockwaves rippling in all directions, tearing through everything with terrifying force. After the clash, the strands slowly receded, streaming back with the smooth flow of a river returning home. Exhausted, Mom Cat collapsed, yet in that moment, Dad, Alice, and the little puppy rushed in together, catching her in their arms. The radiant sunrise lit up the rooftop, wrapping the family in warm light. They smiled together, realizing that after all the storms, the greatest strength wasn't power, but love and togetherness. The cat family wandered along the sunlit cruise deck. Little Alice tugged her dad's sleeve, grinning wide. "Daddy, look!" Bela, the stepsister, cast a piercing glare at Alice. Inside her mind, a nasty thought began to form. Jealous sparks flashed in her eyes. "We'll see who's laughing soon." Bella clutched her chest dramatically, shouting, Dad! Mom! Alice! She fell into the ocean. Alice sank slowly through the sparkling waves, the ship shrinking above. Yet her eyes stayed wide with awe instead of fear. She splashed about happily until a dark outline glided closer. A massive fin cut through the water. The enormous shark loomed, but instead of snapping, it spoke warmly. "Do not tremble, little one. I will not harm you." Alice grabbed onto the giant fin. With one strong sweep, the shark surged forward, carrying her swiftly. Alice beamed, waving, "Thank you! I'll remember this adventure forever." Its figure slipped back into the blue depths. On shore, Alice crouched by a fire, carefully roasting a fish. Her face lit up as she took a huge bite, satisfied. Belly full, she yawned, curling beside the crackling flames for warmth. Spotting driftwood and an old rope, Alice began fastening pieces into a small raft. But the sky grew dark. Wind roared and towering waves pounded the fragile craft. A violent surge tossed Alice onto the sandy coast. Coughing and dripping wet, she was alive. Rain poured endlessly as Alice trudged down the muddy path, arms hugging herself tightly. At last, a warm glow from her familiar home shone through the storm. Without hesitation, Father Cat lifted Alice into his arms. Both wept, their tears blending with the rain. Bella, stepping onto the porch, froze. Her eyes widened at the sight of Father Cat embracing Alice. Father Cat's fierce gaze pierced Bella like a blade. "Bella, you shoved your sister overboard?" Blazing with fury, he hurled Peggy and Bella into the stormy street, tossing their belongings after them. On another day, Father Cat welcomed Peggy and Bella into their cozy home. Alice's eyes sparkled, tail swishing with joy. "Hi, Aunt Peggy. Hi, Bella. Yay, more family." The two kittens dashed about the room, laughter echoing everywhere. Father Cat and Peggy stood nearby, smiling, convinced it was harmony. Bella's playful grin slowly warped into a sinister sneer, envy brewing within. Soon, she started pulling spiteful tricks. Peggy swept both children into her arms, but her sideways glance betrayed the act. From a distance, Father Cat smiled brightly, believing peace had settled. One afternoon, Peggy stirred a pot of soup. She turned with a sugary smile. "Alice, sweetheart, mind the pot while I fetch some greens." As Alice stepped closer, Bella rushed in and shoved her away. Making sure no eyes were watching, Bella snatched the salt jar and dumped in a fistful. That evening, Father Cat tasted the broth. His face twisted before he spat it out. "Ugh, why is it unbearably salty?" Bella jumped quickly. "Dad, Alice was guarding the pot. I saw her fiddling. She must have added too much." Alice's tears spilled over. She covered her face and bolted out the door. Rain lashed down as she trudged along, soaked to the bone and trembling. Hungry, she stopped at a bakery window, staring at the pastries with longing. A shopkeeper stormed out, waving his paw. "Move along! Don't block the doorway!" Desperate, Alice dug through a trash bin and found a soggy crust. Suddenly, a huge dog snarled and charged, forcing her to flee in terror. Collapsing beside a drenched cardboard box, Alice hugged her knees and whispered, "I wish Daddy were here." Meanwhile, Bella leaned close to Peggy, smirking. "I poured the salt." Everyone thinks Alice did it. At the doorway, Father Cat overheard every word and his voice thundered, trembling with rage. "Out! I won't allow liars in my house." He shoved Peggy and Bella into the rain. Then he dashed into the storm, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Alice, where are you?" At last, he spotted the drenched box. He sprinted over, heart pounding. Scooping Alice into his arms, his voice cracked. "Forgive me, I failed you." Daddy. When children make mistakes, listen with your heart, not just with your eyes.